Torah has always fascinated me because Torah is so special. It's mystical. It contains so many secrets and beautiful teachings from so long ago to help inspire and guide our lives. And so I hope what I've discovered and pulled out as wisdom for us all to share this morning resonates with you as well. I've been talking a bit about the Shema because the Shema is so important. It is so important that we're supposed to remember it wherever we go, right? When we enter into any building, any room, in the morning, before we go to bed, it is so important. Why is it so important? Where does it come from, this teaching? Last week, Parshat Va'etchanan, Harry read really beautifully for us, the opening lines of the Shema Yisrael in the first paragraph. And today's Parshat Eikev, we didn't quite get that far, right? Hold off for next year. But we have the second paragraph of the Shema within. One thing that's really difficult to spot in an English translation is that the first paragraph of the Shema talks in the singular form. The second paragraph of the Shema, it instructs us from the perspective of the we, not just me, all of us, the plural. It instructs us that if we obey the commandments of loving God and serving God with all our hearts and souls, rain is going to arrive at the proper season. We can gather new grain and wine and oil, grass for cattle. However, if we are lured to serve other gods, God's anger will flare up. The skies will close and no rain will fall. The ground won't yield its produce. We'll perish from the good land that we have. We're instructed to remember these words as long as the heaven is over the earth, so that we may endure. Ever since I first read those words in English, it struck me that we are living in times where we're pretty out of balance with the earth, and we are seeing some of these things in our time. I was asked over the Minyan chat one day, what is the environmental wisdom in Judaism? And I indicated that the Shema has this wisdom within. However, to explain this, I feel like we have to go back to the beginning of the Shema, how we read it and how we understand it. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Yes, as many of us were taught, this does mean that there is only one God. But the Shema says Adonai Echad. God is one. What does this mean? What does this mean that God is one? When we delve into this concept, we enter into a deep and mystical understanding of the oneness of God, the interconnectedness and sacredness of all of creation, the very godliness of the world itself, of each other. A reminder in this room, which I feel like is really important this particular Shabbos, all human beings, according to the Torah, every single one of us are made B'Tselem Elohim, not just Jewish people. Every person is made in the divine image. The divine runs through all of us and through all of creation, even if as human beings we find this really hard to perceive or even to understand because it's such a big and complex subject. Kabbalah teaches that this sentence holds the entire Torah and Western mysticism. The idea is that the oneness of God isn't the number one. It's a number that transcends. It contains all. It holds nothingness and infinity. It's Ein Sof. It's without end. Most mystical traditions agree on this concept of non-duality. And I can see some of you are like, what is she talking about? This is really hard to process. Have you ever seen ripples in a pond of water? Right? How if you remove one animal from an ecosystem, it can impact the whole ecosystem itself. I love nature. I like watching National Geographic documentaries. The first thing that sprung to mind as I was talking was one about the wolves that had been removed from Yellowstone Park, right? Because wolves are dangerous and scary. But what happened? There were a lot of deer. And what did the deer do? They ate the trees. And what did the trees do? Well, they were holding up the riverbanks, but they weren't there anymore. And then they thought, oh, oops. It's all interconnected. So what does this mean for us as human beings interacting with the divine or to be loving towards God? How do we even do that as human beings? It's so tricky. God's really incredible if you believe in God and this great big oneness that we all exist within. And so I'll explain some words from Rabbi Isaac Luria, the great Kabbalist, who taught that every single object, phenomenon, and force in existence contains the spark of holiness within it. It indicates its function in the grand purpose of everything. And if you are in line and in harmony with God and moving in this divine direction, you have a chance to raise that spark and that bit of the divine. I love Albert Einstein quotes. This is one of my favorites. There are only two ways to live your life. One, as though nothing is a miracle. The other, as though everything is a miracle. So for me, embracing the miraculous nature of the universe sums up how we as human beings can interact with the world and the incredible, marvelous miracle of creation. When we read the second paragraph of the Shema in a modern context, I think often we've forgotten about the miracle. We've forgotten its meaning. We've forgotten our role as human beings in the grand scheme of creation. We live in a time where we live separate from nature, really. We get our food from a store. Most of us don't have tomatoes in our backyards, but a lot of us do. It's nice to interact with the earth in that way. I see some people smiling at me. It's a part of my practice to have a garden and to interact with the earth in that way. If we forget our interaction with nature, sometimes we go astray. We worship other gods. Now, I don't think people necessarily even worship a god a lot of the time these days. However, we do sometimes see a fixation in society on material wealth, money, celebrity, looking cool, likes on social media. Is this the real stuff of life? If we become so fixated on getting stuff that we forget where it comes from and to take what is needed to create it in a way that is in balance with nature, well, you can see where that path is leading us. It's leading us to things that are kind of scary. Smoky skies in the summer, right? Look what just happened in Jasper, in BC. What can we do as human beings in these times? In times of flooding, in times of feast or famine, where there's either too much or too little, what do we do? How do we get back on track? Well, I'm an optimist, and so I don't think it's too late. But I do think it's important that we talk about these things. You know, it's hard to look at sometimes. It's a little scary being a parent in this generation because I didn't experience smoky summers every summer of my childhood. For me, I talk about it, and a part of my practice as a Jewish person, as a human being in the world, is to attempt to be aware of my impact on the world around me, not just my bank account, right? On what I buy, where it comes from, what it's made out of. It's really hard to do. However, the best we can do is try, right? And speak up and speak out and be aware of how to interact with the universe and with God and with creation itself in a way that honors the beauty and sacredness of it all. And so, a part of that is practicing gratitude. I know many of you are here today at Shul on Shabbos or at Minyan during the week, right? And we're here and we're davening and we're praying and we're expressing gratitude. That's a great way to put your life in context with time. It's beautiful. It also has profound benefits on human health. It's been shown to even extend your life up to 7 years to be grateful. It's that simple. But how do we actually fulfill a balanced relationship with our Creator? There's this beautiful, beautiful line in the Jewish liturgy, Va'ani tefilati, I am my prayer. We're not just supposed to daven, we're supposed to be a prayer. We're supposed to try to walk in God's ways, as hard as it is some days when people can be cruel and unkind and thoughtless, to be a force of kindness and peace in a complex world through difficult times. And these are the times that we're living through now as human beings. In order to fulfill the second paragraph of the Shema, we have to not just be our best for us, but we have to make sure that everyone in society is cared for, even if it's hard. Not just human beings, but all beings in all of life, the earth itself, our beautiful home and God's miraculous creation that has the incredible capacity to provide for us all. And so I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Rabbi Hillel. "If I am not for me, who will be? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" Let's embrace the miracle around us of each new day. I'm grateful for this moment, for all of you, and for this beautiful, incredible planet we call home. Shabbat Shalom.